Well, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another series of In Conversations, where we speak with leading figures from across the health and social care sector. Today, we're joined by Miriam Deakin, who's the Director of Development and Engagement at NHS Providers. Miriam, it's great to have you with us. I've always said that of all the stakeholder organisations we work with, the needs of our respective members are perhaps the most closely aligned. A kind of strong, vibrant, innovative NHS provider landscape begets a strong, vibrant, innovative supplier base. So we really do value our relationship with you, and we've been fortunate in recent months to spend quite a bit of time with your relatively new chief executive, Sir Julian Hartley. Julian came in there and spoke to our board. He also attended our soft launch of our manifesto and was subsequently seen brandishing a copy at the NHS Assembly, for which we allowed ourselves a little smile there. So that was good to see. Well, we're here today ostensibly to talk about partnering, and some of the opportunities that may exist for our members working more closely with providers. But people who were disappointed if we didn't start by just, we're recording this on the 1st of May, 2024. So maybe a quick health check on where you see the services at the moment. I think so in the early days of the new financial year, I think what was indicative about some of the challenges is with the fact that the operational planning and guidance, which is usually Christmas time reading, isn't it, for CFOs up and down the land, arrived literally 2 days before the end of the year. So there are those financial challenges for the system. I wrote in my own blog last week that there's nothing too unexpected in the guidance. Talk about workforce, but equally financial situation is such that there is talk of job cuts, redundancies that may actually impact on frontline care. There's a whole question about ICBs, people asking us, what do we do about ICBs? Who do we do it to? There is also the prospect of a new administration at some point later this year, if not early next, but we'll be coming in with very little fiscal headroom to address some of those challenges. So do you just want to give us a couple of minutes on where you see things at the moment?
Thanks, Richard, and thank you for inviting me to have a chat with you and sharing this with your membership. It's always a pleasure. So, I mean, I think you've summarised it really well. I mean, first and foremost, we're in an election year, aren't we? So I think tension is heightened. And I think that very long delay in the planning guidance, as well as being quite difficult for trust leaders because it held up their planning for this financial year, is really indicative of the kind of tension in relationships between NHS England, the department, number 10. Long time to get that guidance over the line, and we've never really seen the likes of that before. So interesting times. I think tensions can run high, can't they? And in terms of the level of challenge out there, it's really interesting. You know, trust leaders who we represent really concerned about getting their heads around this productivity challenge, and a lot of back and forth with NHS England around what the methodologies for calculating productivity might look like. Questions about whether we should be thinking more about the value that services provide and how we measure them when we're trying to radically change pathways and so on. So a huge focus on finance and productivity. As you rightly say, it's now looking like it will have an impact on headcount, so the likes of which we haven't seen for a number of years. And alongside that, I think you've got this anxiety around risk and patient care and patient flow through the system while we try and cope with very high demand for all types of services, but a particularly pressured UEC pathway, and think about how we could support people differently at home or offer more care up front so people don't reach crisis. So it's a whole kind of bucket around care quality, I think, which we perhaps haven't seen the like of in quite the way we're experiencing it in recent years. And then, of course, you've got workforce morale. You know, we're still, I think, experiencing the legacy of COVID and what people went through in that period. And we've now got the legacy and, in fact, the ongoing tension of industrial action and this sense that that's kind of exacerbating divides within a one NHS workforce, so a set of people that we really want to bring together. So there's an awful lot going on, but what's most interesting, I think, is that when we speak to our board, which is representative of trust chairs and chief execs, or when we speak with our members, they're really keen for us as their membership organisation, both to be voicing those concerns, but also to be helping them to hold the hope and to find solutions. And it's in that kind of solution finding piece that I think our partnerships programme really comes into its own. And that is the space that we're really keen to work with your members and to work with you to understand a little more. What are the solutions out there that have worked? You know, how could we share them a little bit more effectively? What's the kind of stimulation and the thought leadership that could be provided from elsewhere outside of the direct walls of the NHS? So it always really takes me back, actually, how resilience, probably the wrong word, but how tenacious trust leaders are and how keen they are for us as their membership body to hold the hope and hold the level of ambition and solution finding, as well as voicing quite a difficult set of circumstances.
That's great. I mean, that hold the hope is an interesting phrase. I mean, I came across it yesterday, actually, in Belfast. We were there at a big innovation conference, and the minister basically, he asked, what do you want from us innovators? And he says, give us some hope for the system. And that's really interesting. It's a great overview of where we're at the moment, and I don't think anyone underestimates the challenges. I've always said that for people in this space selling into the NHS, because they've got nowhere else to sell the stuff to, largely, that it's really important to understand what's going on, all these kind of things you've talked about, because understanding it means you'll have a better appreciation of the system you're serving, and you should be more successful in being able to do that, which I think possibly brings us on to some of the partnering opportunities I know where you wanted to talk about and that you're developing at Providers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in this context, we've been thinking about whether we're working with the right partners and as effectively as we could with different partners. So we've been reviewing our approach, and we've got many opportunities to partner with different types of organisations, particularly those who've got ideas or solutions to sell in or to provide to the NHS. So first and foremost, I think we've got opportunities around our annual conference, which takes place over 2 days every year in November. This year we're in Liverpool for our final year. We'll be in Manchester next year. And this year we're going with the theme of Next Generation, which is intended to capture the fact that we're in an election year and that the NHS does need to move forward and do things differently. But I was also hoping it might play really well to some of our partners' interests in AI and digital and new ways of working. So that's what we're building the conference theme around. We've got exhibition opportunities. We've got opportunities to sponsor sessions or work with us to develop content. So if you are interested in that type of space, that type of event space, or connecting with NHS leaders in that regard, do feel free to get in touch and drop me a line. We can have a chat about that. We're not the biggest event. We're not a Confed Expo of sort of 6,000. So we get footfall of around 700-800 people, but they are decision makers in trust. They're board level delegates, and we get really good feedback on the quality of conversations that people are able to have around some of the tables at that event. So it's worth considering. You'd be very welcome. You'd be very welcome to come and attend and just see what it's like if you've not been before. And beyond that, we've found, I think, as we've worked with different partners over the years, we found that the most value is when we can collaborate with people and work a little bit more intensively with partners. So we've been thinking about that in refreshing our partners programme. And we've got 4 tiers of the programme, which I'll summarise for you, but we're quite flexible in our approach, very happy to have a conversation at any time. But at the moment we've got 4 tiers of the commercial partners programme. The first is an entry level, it's called Insight. And the idea is that you'll have access to all of our briefings, all of NHS Providers policy analysis. You also get access to a quarterly policy update from one of our policy experts. So the idea is that you're getting that insight from us as a membership organisation on the landscape. We've got a tier called Connect, which is about connecting with our membership. And within that tier, we quite often explore joint webinars or blogs, that sort of material to kind of get your messages and the successes of your products and services out there a little bit more effectively across the sector. Then we've got a tier called Collaborate, which, as it suggests, is a little bit more intensive. So within that tier, we've done some joint work with partners before. So, for example, developing a joint toolkit or hosting events jointly, that type of thing. And then this year, working with a couple of our partners who we've known for years. We've developed an additional tier called Transform, and as that suggests, the idea of that is that we work more intensively together to really try and transform care, transform the offer that's available to our members. And as I say, the value for us of our commercial partnerships is really almost entirely in being able to connect our members with people who can help them. There's obviously a bit of a financial element, but really it's not a money spinner for us. The value for us is in the relationships we build and in being able to connect trust leaders with people who've got some answers or some hint of an answer for some of the difficulties that they're facing.
Yeah, it's great. It's really interesting. When we spoke to Sir Julian, he talked a little bit about this and about how we may want to work together in some areas to look at a sort of suite of solutions that may be valuable to us. And the flexibility you mentioned is important. You'll be aware that 80% of our members listening to this are SMEs, smaller companies. So there aren't too many really big players that you may see from our friends at the pharmaceutical industry, for example. So I think that flexibility will be really interesting. So just give I've always enjoyed attending your conference. I think you're right. It is a smaller concern than some, but you bang on operational NHS people there. Just give us a flavour of some of the things that will be on the main stage this year.
So main stage, obviously we're not able to finalise our sort of political invites, which is quite irritating, but we will certainly go for the Secretary of State, and we've had them every year. We've never missed a year. A couple of years we've had an electronic message, but I would be confident we'll get the Secretary of State in person this year. We may have the shadow as well, depending when the election falls and what we need to do around invites. So we'll absolutely have those big hitters. Amanda Pritchard always comes and does a keynote speech as well. And then we are finalising the programme in terms of individuals, but the sorts of themes we're thinking about for the plenary stage are that we want some sort of input on leadership for the audience this year. We think that could be quite timely, something sort of motivational, but acknowledges the challenges, but sort of buoys people up a little bit. So we're thinking about that. And then we're thinking, given the theme is next generation, we're thinking about how the NHS might need to do things differently. So we're intending to have a dedicated focus on AI and tech, sort of next generation, new ways of doing things, and also prevention, sort of new care models, different ways we might support patients and the public. So that's as far as the plenary stage is shaped up thus far. But we've got a lot of scope with next generation, I think, and we'll have a series of work streams alongside that typically we'll look at productivity, probably some workforce issues, and probably something around sort of patient-facing, community-facing care. And we also always really enjoy our sponsored sessions, which are in part delivered as a sort of silent disco in the main exhibition space. So they're always really well attended, actually, as are our breakfast sessions. So we've got a lot to run at, but within that theme of next generation, I think we definitely want a bit of outside stimulation for our audience around sort of leadership. What's the potential of doing things differently via AI, tech, and new care pathways?
Right, well, that sounds really exciting. Remind us again of the date, Miriam.
Oh, crikey. I think, oh no, I do know this because it follows my son's birthday, 12th and 13th of November.
So 12th and 13th of
Liverpool.
November. In Liverpool, yeah. So people will know that conference arena well. Miriam, it's been great to talk to you. We'll continue the conversation. We'll send links to you and details of the conference as they exist at this time when we put this out to everybody. But I think the message is you're very happy to speak to people. There's a lot of flexibility.
Absolutely. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you very much. Until next time. Thank you.